Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Elden Ring and we're doing top 5 best Greatswords in the game. So this one's going to be for those, I would say, well, obviously strength-based, but specifically people who want swords, because there's other giant weapons that you can use for strength builds, like axes and hammers and stuff. But this one's just the swords, because I know a lot of people like the moveset of swords better. The hacking and slashing, not to mention the old heavy attacks. So with all that in mind, we're going to start it off with the fifth one, obviously. But before we do, I just want to clarify this ranking is based, all things being equal, so stats are max. All of the weapons are going to be maxed out, upgraded, so none of these are going to be up to interpretation. The stats are just objectively better on some of these when you upgrade them this way and when your levels are up, up high enough for it. It's actually the most even way we can rank weapons in this game. So we're going to start it off with number 5, the Dark Moon Greatsword. So as you can see, this one's a pretty cool looking weapon, definitely very iconic in the game. A lot of people are going to see callbacks for this one, and it's really just an excellent weapon. It's got a lot of advantages to it. Like I said, it's got a standard greatsword swing speed and movement set that I know a lot of people really like to enjoy with these weapons. As far as stats go for this one, it's actually got pretty dang good stats. I mean, all of these do, but this one's, I don't know why I qualify that for number 5. They're all obviously going to be pretty good. So this one has a max attack power of 1014 when upgraded all the way. It's definitely a very high damage level, hard hitting weapon, and it has an average guarded damage negation of 39, so that's actually pretty dang good. As far as attributes required to use this one, strength of 16, dexterity of 11, so those ones aren't too ridiculous, but it does require intelligence of 38, so this one is going to be one that you're going to want to try to plan for, because that's decently high for certain builds. For some it's not going to be ridiculous, but for some it's going to be out of the way. So that is it stat-wise. It has a passive effect of frost buildup, which is great, because frost is actually pretty powerful in this game, so the more you're fighting with this one and the more you're hitting someone, the more buildup they're going to take on that. So it's great against larger enemies, or just stronger enemies, I should say, that are going to take more hits, especially if they're weak to frost. Honestly, a really cool weapon. Like I said, as far as looks go, I definitely enjoy this one. As far as where to get this one, it's actually probably the most complicated weapon in the game to obtain. So eventually you're going to get it at the Cathedral of Manus Celis. So you're going to come here, you're going to drop down this little hole here and make your way down to there, and you're going to find it. Decently easy, because you're going to be putting a ring on a statue and then you'll get it. It's not complicated at that level, but it's this whole long quest line to get it. So this is the Rena's quest, so if you've heard about longer quest lines in the game, you're going to be familiar with that one. You're going to start by making your way up through Liurnia here, or Liurnia of the Lakes over on this side. Make your way all the way up through the Caria Manor until you get over to Ranni's Chamber, in Ranni's Rise, I should say, and you make your way up and you can start a long quest chain that's going to take you to a bunch of underground regions all over the place, eventually ending through here. You're going to pick up a doll, all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to explain it all today because it's actually a really long process, but I will link a video in the description or in the pinned comment, probably the description, of an excellent video from another channel to watch that does a great job walking through step by step. So that is the Dark Moon Greatsword. Obviously, this is a really powerful weapon that's going to, well, I mean, these enemies are really low level, so they're one hit by most things. But this is definitely a very strong one. The cool thing about this sword is actually what happens when you charge it, because then as soon as you charge it and it holds this for a while, all of your heavy attacks send out a slicing, like, ice wave of magic damage that is actually really great for combat, even against groups. God, this sword's awesome. But anyway, so that is the number 5 spot, the Dark Moon Greatsword, an iconic Souls weapon. And like I said, it's definitely difficult to get, but I think it's well worth it, because, I mean, it really speaks for itself. It's one of the best swords, great swords in the game, just damage-wise, and it also has that awesome frost build-up, as well as the special magic attack, so what's not to like? That's number 5, let's move on to number 4. Alright, and for number 4 on this list, we have Ordovis's Greatsword. Now this one is a more traditional-looking weapon. It's one of my favorite looking as far as greatswords go. Bronze-colored weapon with a standard, or pretty close to being standard, cruciform style. As far as stats go for this one, we have a max attack power of 1037, so just slightly higher than the Dark Moon Sword. Of course, this one doesn't have the frost buildup or the special magic attack, but it is still an excellent weapon. As far as guarded damage negation goes, we have an average score of 42 for that one, and getting this one is actually not very complicated. Much simpler than the Dark Moon Greatsword. So you're going to want to make your way over here to the capital region, and make your way up around the capital, follow this road here, so you can see here we have the Outer Wall Battlegrounds, follow this road here, split at the fork, and come down here, follow the road underneath the bridge. It's going to take you all the way over to Ariza's Hero Grave, which is just a standard dungeon. And you're going to want to make your way through all the way to the end, and there you'll fight the Crucible Knight Ordovis. And when you defeat him, that's where you get this sword. So it's a pretty straightforward process, just a simple boss. Well, it's not a simple boss fight. I guess he hits decently hard and moves real fast, but that is where you'll get this sword, and it is an excellent weapon. You can see here it's got a pretty standard move set as far as Greatswords go. Nothing real out of the ordinary there. Very strong weapon. It's got a lot of power behind those strength attacks. I find it not very difficult with this one to do decent shield breaking damage attacks. Obviously these are low level enemies. I just like fighting them because they're nice and close to the site of grace. But I think it's a great example of how even the light attacks on a sword with this much power and damage potential behind it can make it really, really effective. So that is number 4, Ordovis's Greatsword. Let's move on to the next one at number 3. Alright, and so for number 3 we have the Gargoyle's Blackblade. Now there are a couple different Gargoyle swords in the game, but the Blackblade is the one that takes the number 3 spot on our Greatsword ranking list. Obviously it's got a pretty standard look. I actually kind of like the way this one looks. It does have an interesting build-up of what appears to be tar on the top. I assume that's blood or something else. I have no idea what it is, but it looks like tar. And that doesn't affect it at all, obviously, in the game, but realistically this again would just be a giant metal club, considering it at the size of those bevels, there would be no sharp edge on this. But with that in mind, stats for this one are decently high. This one has a max attack power of 1,044 and an average guarded damage negation of 41.2, so again, pretty dang high for a greatsword. As far as attributes required to use this one, we have a strength requirement of 18, dexterity of 10, and faith of 22. So not too ridiculously high. Obviously, if you're not a faith build, that 22 might be harder to get, but other than that, decently attainable, I would say, at least for certain builds. To acquire this one, again, it's going to be pretty straightforward, even though there is a little bit of contention. So I am pretty sure I got it at a fight for the Bestial Sanctum. So there are, I believe I remember being 2 gargoyles that have the same name, and they're called the Blackblade Kindred. One of them drops this, and the other one drops either a halberd or an axe. I can't remember for sure. One of them you fight here, I think, at the Bestial Sanctum here in Caelid. At least that's where I'm pretty sure I killed it, as a boss fight decently early on. And then the other one is up here in the mountaintops of the giants. I'm not exactly sure where. It's hard for me to remember because I obviously acquire all these weapons before I make these videos. But I'm pretty sure this Blackblade, you get it from fighting the Blackblade Kindred up here at the Bestial Sanctum. It was a decently hard fight. Definitely hits really, really hard, especially when I fought him in the game, which was decently early on. But if you attain it, this is a pretty dang good weapon. As far as moves for this one go, it's not going to be too ridiculous out of the ordinary. Light attacks, or as light as they can come with greatswords, look pretty normal. And strength attacks also follow suit. Where this one does come in handy is that it has a special magic damage, so if you go to use it two-handed, it'll do a like slashing downward wave attack. That is pretty dang powerful. It's just an all-around good sword. I know a lot of people really like it, and there's actually quite a few interesting builds based solely around this weapon that are all actually pretty overpowered. So yeah, the Gargoyle's Blackblade, I think, well deserves its spot at number 3 on this list. So that's all for this one. Let's move on to the number 2 spot at our runner-up for the best greatsword in Elden Ring. Alright, and so for number 2 at the runner-up spot, and actually my personal favorite of all of the swords on this list, we have the Sacred Relic sword. Now this one I like a lot for probably pretty obvious reasons. It's a more realistic size, and it looks really cool, and it's glowing like a whitish gold color. Very cool look to it. This is by definition an endgame weapon, because it can only be attained by fighting basically the last story boss. Now obviously you don't need to fight them in that order, but if you're following the storyline and kind of doing side quests on the way and fighting bosses on the way, most times the last boss you fight is going to be the one that unlocks this weapon for you. But if you just rush the story and then play the world, maybe you'll use it in a lot of fights. But anyway, for stats on this one, we have a max attack power of 1,057, so slightly higher than the last, and an average guarded damage negation of 37.8. So this one has, for attributes required, 14 strength, 24 dexterity, and 22 faith. So this one is going to be your strength and faith build sort of going towards this one. A little bit higher higher on dexterity than I would account for, but it does move decently fast for a greatsword. Like I said, it looks excellent, and the only way to attain this one is to, you have to trade the Elden Remembrance with Enya. So she's in here. So I've actually already obviously traded my Remembrance for the sword, so I don't actually have one to show you. You go up in here and it'll be receive power from Remembrance, and you get the Elden Remembrance by defeating the Elden Beast. So that's going to be, like I said, at the end of at least one of the branches for the main story. Up here at the Elden Throne, you'll do a boss fight, you'll fight someone, and you get the Remembrance, and you can bring it back here. And so that will unlock this sword for you, and it is a really cool sword. Alright, so for this one, the moveset is pretty standard. We have a 4-cycle light attack hit, ending with a ground slam, and then a 2-cycle heavy attack one, starting with a ground slam and then coming with a backslash. So definitely decently powerful there. If we use the one-handed mode, it sends out a very powerful wave of fire, basically. So it's going to be that holy fire, and that is an overpowered crowd control weapon. It is so great. So just watch. You gotta love it. Like I said, this weapon is, it's easily my favorite greatsword. Now, obviously, like I said, if you're following the natural progression, there's a decent chance that it'll be, like, one of the last weapons you unlock. But if you're like me and you do a lot of side content, wiggling around and stuff like that, interspersed, you're probably going to find plenty of enemies to take out with this bad boy of a sword. Alright, and so for our #1 spot for the best greatswords in the game, we have the Blasphemous Blade, this really nasty looking one. So it looks like a pretty standard greatsword, a little bit thinner than the Gargoyle's Blackblade. Actually, it looks pretty similar to Ordovis's greatsword, but it's covered in these reaching tendrils, which appear to be tiny little red arms, which is really gross. But it definitely is a really effective weapon. As far as stats on this one go, it has a max attack power of 1,114, putting it a decent chunk above even the Sacred Relic sword. It has an average guarded damage negation of 44.8, and you get it basically the same way as you get the Sacred Relic sword. After defeating one of the endgame bosses, Rykard, which is up here at Mount Gelmir, you trade that Remembrance to Enya at the Round Table Hold, and you can get this sword. And then obviously you can upgrade it with your Somber Smithing Stones. As far as attributes required to use this one, it's a Strength of 22, Dexterity of 15, and Faith of 21, so another Strength and Faith one. Definitely a really overpowered sword that's got some ridiculous abilities to it. To do this one, however, it's actually part of the Volcano Manor questline. So if you're not familiar how to do that one, you start down here in the Liurnia region, and you can see this little telescope here by the Scenic Isle marker. You go to this little island here, it's a little gazebo type thing, and there's going to be a girl inside. She's going to say that someone stole her necklace and she needs it back. So you're going to need to go over here to the Boil Prawn Shack and either buy it or whatever. I just bought it from the guy for 1,000 runes, and then head back and give it to her. Then she will invite you to Volcano Manor, and you can accept that invitation. Then once you've done that, all you have to do is make your way up to the Grand Lift of Dectus, once you've got the medallion halves to actually get up it, and she will be waiting at the top for you, and she will bring you up to Volcano Manor, which is the only way to get up here. Alright, so for this one, again, pretty standard attack system, so it's going to be a 4-strike light attack. They move pretty quick, ending with a ground pound. And then for the heavy attack, it's going to be, again, pretty simple. We're going to start it off with a ground pound and then a backslash. And so it's got decent damage as far as, you know, regular attacks are concerned. But again, like many of the cool weapons in the game, the part that's really going to stand out is going to be the special attack. So if you do the two-handed move to use it, it does a really powerful flame wave. Not the same as the last one, because the last one's spread out. This one's more of a directed attack, makes it very nice. And it actually builds up rather quickly. So it's something that I think you'll find decently easy to utilize in regular combat. So that is my list of the top 5 best great swords in Elden Ring. Like I said, some of these are what a lot of people would consider endgame weapons, but you can definitely rush them if you want. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you like this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.